Hello everybody, this is a new video. It's a new what if. I haven't done these types of videos in a long time, so I decided to bring it back. First of all, I'd like to say though that I have Skype. You can add me at Dinosaur Avenger 1989, same as my username here. Check out Anthrax Mosh's videos on John Cena. I'll try to link them or something. Hopefully he can put them as a response to this, and you can check it out from there. Anyway, what if? The question is from Ron Buddha 6669. He gave me two questions. I'll just cover the first one, or the one I think should be first, which is what if Jeff Jarret was kept on contract after WCW went out of business by WWF. So basically the question is, what if Jeff Jarret was sort of somewhat rehired by the WWE when WCW went under? This would be a long shot, but hypothetically, if it did happen, if they did work something out, because a lot of people like to say, or WWE likes to say that Jeff Jarret tried to blackmail the WWE into giving him money, but apparently other sources have said that that was pay-per-view bonuses that he was owed, and because WWE is in a bad period, they didn't give them to him, so he asked for them, and eventually he got them, and then they sort of released him. But I'm unsure of that, of the true story. It's probably a bit of both. Anyway, if Jeff Jarret had been signed to the WWE, it probably wouldn't have been a lengthy run. He would have had in there again, but it would have been long enough that because as soon as WCW went under, the first thing he started to do was obviously he did some indie shows and did some shows for some other potential large promotions. Just kept active, and planned out the TNA thing, got the funding to do the pay-per-views and all that. But if he hadn't been around to do that, TNA probably wouldn't exist, because really TNA sort of was a ship where he was going to be the top guy for the first couple of years, or he was going to be the top guy at this promotion. And I think he served that purpose pretty well for a while, because he was the biggest name, or one of the biggest names they had. But if that hadn't have happened, what we would have seen is WWE would have dominated even more. And because when WCW went out of business, you had really two large companies come up that could have potentially been a new WCW, which was World Wrestling All-Stars and XWF. Oh, and TNA was in there too. But in this universe, if Jeff Jarret went to the WWF, you would have had XWF and World Wrestling All-Stars. World Wrestling All-Stars only held pay-per-views every couple months. XWF only taped a couple pilots. And most of the talent that was on XWF was on TNA anyway, so there was nothing really TNA could have added to that. And by the time XWF, the plug had been pulled on XWF, the guys like that was. By the time guys like Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall got released from their contracts, Kurt Hennig was originally in the XWF tapings, but he was snatched up by WWF. So they lost a big name, and Hogan went to the WWF, and they lost another one, so XWF was stopped from taking off. World Wrestling All-Stars probably would have been the same thing. It never would have... it would have the same fate. It never would have taken off. But what you would have seen is a lot of... a lot more independent promotions, and you wouldn't have seen a large promotion for a while, I don't think. Basically because WCW had gone out of business, ECW had gone out of business. You had a lot of big names, but as we saw, 2 out of 3 failed, and the third one only succeeded because it had the financial backing, which was fortunate for us. So, and and anything large wouldn't have been long term anyway. It would have only lasted for a couple months, maybe a year or two, like at Major League Wrestling, which was it was a they like to call it a hybrid promotion. They drew pretty big crowds because they had pretty big names for it, like Mike Awesome, Terry Funk, and guys from ECW, and a couple guys from WCW and all that. But that's probably what we would have seen. We would have seen a whole bunch of, or a whole lot of super indies. Definition for super indie is just independent promotions that have big names and draw big crowds. What Ring of Honor is now. And Ring of Honor would have been started off, and I think they still would have been built up over time and gotten to the point they were, because with the super indies, there were Major League Wrestling was one of them, but it went out of business, and because they were trying to grow too fast, they went out of business. In indie promotions that try to grow too fast always go out of business. As is, Japan, you can look over there, they've got so many indies, it's not funny, and the only ones that have survived are the ones that have focused on just getting a foothold instead of trying to just, try to go through, or, trying to get too big too fast. So that's what you would have ended up with. You would have ended up with a whole series of super indies, and then they'd go out of business, and all these guys would eventually go back to the WWF for a while, or, any major promotion that was trying to start off, and I don't think anyone would have, and then would have gone back to super indies, a bunch of super indie promotions again, or a whole bunch of super indies would have started. And the problem with those types of independent promotions is not a lot of big names are built from them. They rely on a lot of older talent, and they never really do anything special. They sort of try to build themselves as an independent promotion like ECW did. Yet the problem is they don't have the same thing which made them great, or made ECW great, which makes Ring of Honor great, is the bringing in new talent and stuff like that. And so you would just be stuck with a whole lot of independent promotions across the United States. It's sort of like that now, where you've got Ring of Honor in sort of New England area, and you've got PWG in one bit, and then the rest of the country is just a bunch of scattered indies. It would have been the same, but those scattered indies between PWG and ROH and Chikara and CCW and IWA Mid-South and stuff, which would be in the Mid-South, would be a lot stronger. So you'd have strong independent promotions in the Deep South, and strong independent promotions in the other parts of the United States, as opposed to there's only about two strong area, or not even two. There's really one strong area I would consider in the United States for independent promotions. But if there'd never been TNA taking off, you would have probably a lot more with strong independent scenes, because a lot of these guys would just go back to their home and just travel the local indie circuit, and eventually it would do pretty good business for the independent promotions, and they'd start taking less money. So yeah, you'd just be stuck with a whole bunch of large independent promotions, like Ring of Honor, and it would be somewhat annoying, because then it would sort of develop. You'd have WWE at the top, and then underneath you just have all these independent promotions and all, a sort of territorial system, like what you saw in the NWA days, where they had territories. Except these territories wouldn't be united; they'd just be independent promotions trying to survive. So really, TNA has done a lot of good for the wrestling world, because it has given a lot of talent a chance to really ply their craft and make a living. So yeah, that's what would have happened if Jarret had gone to WWF. Of course, eventually he would have fallen victim, and he probably would have gone to the NWA territories. He would have been fallen victim to what a lot of guys did, which was get fired from the WWF pretty quickly. Maybe in like mid-2002 or something like that. Anyway, I'm done for now. I'll talk to you later.